How is it that ancient civilizations, thousands of miles apart and completely unaware of each other, built such similar massive structures? Why do the monumental structures rising in Egypt, in the jungles of Mexico, and on other continents all resemble the same basic geometric idea, a triangular form narrowing toward the sky? When there was no internet, no intercontinental ships or telephones, how did humanity copy the same architectural project all over the world? Is this just a natural result of an ordinary engineering necessity, or is there a lost and global connection in the dusty pages of human history that we do not yet know about? Today, we are descending into the real secret of those massive stone structures that have been the subject of archaeology's greatest obsession and thousands of conspiracy theories, from aliens to lost continents. Are you ready to solve the mystery of the pyramids? To solve this mystery, we must first correct the biggest misunderstanding. Today, when we say pyramid, most of us think of the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. A massive triangle with a perfectly flat surface, calculated with the golden ratio. However, not all pyramids in the world are like Giza. When you look at Central America, for example, the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico or El Castillo, you don't see a flat surface, but stepped structures with a temple at the very top, accessed by massive stairs. When we go to Africa, to the Nubian pyramids in Sudan, we encounter structures that are very different from the Egyptian ones, with narrower angles and much sharper points. So the word pyramid does not refer to a single type of structure. We use pyramid as a general name for every large monument with a wide base and a narrow top in different parts of the world. However, this situation, of course, does not solve the massive similarity problem at hand. When we look at the geographical distribution map of these structures, things get really intriguing. We see massive stone monuments in Egypt and Sudan. When we cross the ocean to Central and South America, massive stepped pyramids built by the Mayans and Aztecs rise from the jungles in Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru. Turning our direction completely toward the depths of Asia, to China, we encounter massive pyramid mounds covered with soil and grass over the underground tombs of ancient emperors. The same idea, the same desire to climb to the sky, seems to appear again and again on different continents and in different centuries. This is exactly where those natural and powerful questions that stick in the minds of the viewers, namely all of us, begin. If they never communicated with each other, why did they all choose the triangular form? Why did they all attempt the incredibly difficult task of cutting and stacking massive stone blocks weighing thousands of tons? Why did they all try to reach as high as possible, to the sky? And why were almost all of these structures positioned in a way that establishes a perfect relationship with specific stars or the movements of the sun? The human mind has difficulty accepting this many coincidences and inevitably looks for a common master or a common code behind this work. To put this romantic mystery into a more scientific framework, we need to put these structures side by side and examine them in detail. How similar are they really? When we look at their similarities, they are all monumental, they all carry the idea of ascension, and they are all sacred centers showing the political power of the kings and pharaohs of the period. However, when we get into the details and the mortar of the matter, very serious differences emerge. The construction techniques are completely different. While the inside of the Egyptian pyramids is full of narrow tunnels and secret burial chambers, the outside is smooth. The inside of the pyramids in America is usually filled with earth or rubble. The actual living space and temple are at the very top of the structure. While pyramids in Egypt represent the world of the dead, Mayan pyramids are the world of the living, the center of bloody sacrifice rituals and city squares. So they look similar from a distance, but when you get close to them, you realize that their souls and purposes of use are completely different. Then let's ask the real question. Why did these people with different purposes choose the same shape? The answer may be much simpler than thought and entirely related to physics. You are in ancient times and the only material you have is rock or mud. Your king wants you to build the highest monument that reaches the sky and will never collapse. No steel, no concrete. If you try to stack those stones on top of each other in the form of a straight wall like a modern skyscraper, the structure will collapse under its own weight when it reaches a certain height. The most stable, most perfect, and simplest physical form for stacking heavy stones on top of each other for thousands of years without collapsing is the pyramid. You make a wide base, narrow it upward, and the weight is distributed perfectly directly downward toward the center. Perhaps the pyramid appeared again and again not because it was a very mysterious or magical code, but because it was the most practical and only engineering way to reach the sky under the conditions of that period. Scientists and evolutionary biologists call this situation convergent evolution. In nature, the body shapes of dolphins and sharks, which have no kinship with each other, are very similar. Because both have to swim fast in the water. Similar physical problems produce similar solutions in different living things. The same is true for cultures and civilizations. When an architect in Egypt and an architect in Mexico encountered the same physical problem called gravity, human intelligence naturally reached the same geometric solution, the pyramid form. There is no intercontinental communication or spaceships. There is only the same genius and the same physical necessity. Even if we accept this engineering explanation, we come to that big and legendary argument that conspiracy theorists always put on the table. Astronomical alignments. We know the claims that the Pyramid of Giza aligns with the stars in the belt of the Orion constellation, or that famous descending snake shadow formed on the stairs of the El Castillo Pyramid in Mexico during the spring equinox. Could these be coincidences? Absolutely not. These civilizations followed the movements of the sun, equinoxes, and stars perfectly. However, this does not mean they talked to aliens. In ancient times, the night sky was not full of light pollution like it is today. To farm, to know the time of the river's flooding, and to follow the seasons, watching the sun and stars was a vital necessity. The sky was both their calendar and their god. Aligning their massive monuments with their calendars shows not that they had an extraterrestrial technology, but that they watched nature with as much immense attention as we have forgotten today. Despite all these rational and scientific explanations, why are lost civilization theories still watched millions of times on the internet? The ideas people put forward are always much more fascinating. The idea that a forgotten global civilization like Atlantis distributed this ancient knowledge to the whole world, or the belief that gods from space cut these stones with lasers. These ideas are very attractive to people, because these stories add a fantastic color to our monotonous and boring lives. We want to believe that the world is a much more mysterious and magical place than we think. However, science has a golden rule. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so far, neither a laser cutter remnant nor a map proven to have come from Atlantis has been found. Excavation reports and carbon tests obtained from the field by the world of archaeology summarize the situation very clearly. These structures were not built at the same time. While the Egyptian pyramids were built around 2500 BC, many of the pyramids in America began to be built thousands of years later, during the Roman Empire period. The cultural contexts in which they were built, the tools used, and the methods are completely different from each other. There is no strong, undisputed academic evidence of direct transoceanic contact between the two civilizations. Today's modern academic approach is that these pyramids are the products of completely independent cultural developments. Despite this, the discussions do not end because the human mind always tends to look for a hidden connection and a pattern between unrelated events. In psychology, this is called apophenia. Also, we modern humans constantly underestimate the capacity of people in ancient times because we have cranes and computers. We don't want to believe that they could build those stones weighing thousands of tons using only ropes, wooden sleds, human muscle, and a brilliant organization. Rather than accepting that unbelievable and stubborn power of human labor, it is easier for our ego to involve aliens. Perhaps we are focusing on the completely wrong question when looking at the pyramids. The real big mystery that deserves respect is not by whom these structures were built. The real mystery is how the kings of that era were able to coordinate tens of thousands of workers, engineers, and farmers for years for a single goal. What was that psychological power that pushed them to think on such a massive and superhuman scale, to cut and transport massive stones, and to build a mountain from scratch? Their beliefs were so strong that they dedicated their lives to these massive projects that would last for generations. This question is much more inspiring, much more mysterious, and more real than the question of whether aliens did it. Pyramids do not only tell us the laws of physics, they tell us a very deep story about the universal nature of humanity. No matter which continent of the world we are on, no matter what language we speak, there is always a desire within us to turn toward the sky and be closer to the gods. There is a passion to fight death, to leave a permanent mark in this world, and to resist the destructiveness of time. The kings who challenged their own mortality by stepping on those stones seem to have reached their desires even if today their names remain only in history books. Because even today, thousands of years later, we continue to gather around those stones and talk about them. As a result, when we bring all the evidence together, the picture before us is very clear. Those massive stone monuments rising from Egypt to Mexico, from China to Peru, are not secret signs left by aliens or a common code coming from Atlantis. They are the common letters of that magnificent answer that humanity gave by itself, with its own intelligence and sweat, against nature, gravity, and death. Perhaps the real question we should ask in the face of the pyramids is not why they look like each other. The real question is why humanity always dreams on the same scale even in the most distant and dark corners of the world. If those massive silent mountains built thousands of years ago still make us ask questions today, perhaps the real power of the pyramids is not in their weight, but in that eternal curiosity they leave in the human mind. Well, what do you think about this? Do you think those stone blocks weighing tons were really built using only human power and ropes, or are there much darker secrets of history that we do not yet know? Share your thoughts and your own theories with us in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue discovering the secrets of the past and the future.